about that community, but also to share what's going on in that community in terms of human trafficking and the exploitation that happens. Today, Melania Vaughn is going to lead that discussion for us and introduce also a member of the Indigenous community who is going to be able to really highlight some of these issues. But let me introduce Melania first. Melania is a member of the core team, and she's been with us for a long time, but some of you may not know her story, may not know how she got to us and what her life was like. Melania's family escaped the Cambodian killing fields on foot when she was just an infant. They were refugees from a war-torn country and were fortunate enough to come to the United States after being sponsored by a Presbyterian church from Maryland. They were a shattered family looking for a second chance at life. She found her life's passion in two things: building businesses and advocating against exploited women and children. Toward these goals, Melania served as the executive director for Fair Trade Long Beach for 2 years, as well as being the founder of Global Fashion Mission since March 2016, an international distributor of fair trade goods that give back towards human trafficking awareness and survivors. She also serves as the vice chair for the nonprofit The Project Foundation and is the lead director for the Project Safe Haven, New Mexico. She's a core team member, as I said, for the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force and has worked in supporting Homeland Security investigations and providing services to victims of human trafficking, as well as organizing various fundraisers and community awareness events. Spring of 2021, she was recently appointed as a commissioner for the Citizens Police Complaint for District 6 in the city of Long Beach. She'll be leading our presentation today, and with that, I welcome Melania.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, perfect. Do bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but before that, I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. And I appreciate all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and be a part of what we do here at the Human Trafficking Task Force of Long Beach. So what we do at the Project Foundation is our mission is to prevent sex trafficking and sexploitation of women and children. We envision a nation that protects women and children from all forms of sexploitation and to bring healing within and beyond our borders. That's what we've been really busy doing for the past couple of years. And recently, before I go in, what we do is we actually have lots of projects, ongoing projects. Let me change my view. Bringing together like Project Blue, bringing together community existing anti-human trafficking efforts to build upon and create infrastructure to help and sustain change. We've implemented this in several cities. Project Educate, which is an educational service provided to educate parents, leaders, and the community. Our educational framework consists of addressing signals of one being trafficking, occurrences of sex trafficking in the US, and risk factors and protective factors. And one of my favorites is Project Art and Action. It's an art and media campaign, and the goal is to achieve prevention and education. This is a catalyst for positive change. We pretty much utilize forms of art, produce films, media, exhibits, virtual exhibits, music for artists to platform their talents for social change. And today, what I'm going to be speaking about is our Native and Indigenous peoples. I've had the honor and the privilege to go ahead and spend time with many of them this past summer in Gallup, New Mexico. Initially, I was there for a church event, and it pretty much extended. I was able to teach their children, spend time with the mothers and their community all summer long. And it really shed so much light in regards to what I didn't know, what I thought I knew about Native Americans, but then just being with them and hearing their stories really broke my heart. Most people living in the United States are familiar with the term Native American, Native Indian, and increasingly Indigenous American or Indigenous peoples. So generally speaking, both American Indian and Native American, they're pretty much okay to use, but refer to the Indigenous peoples of America. That said, when you're addressing somebody from a tribe that's native, it's always best to ask them what they prefer to be addressed as. I come across many people who just prefer to be addressed as native or indigenous peoples. So it's more about not what you know and what we're comfortable with, but also getting to know what they like and what they prefer. And I think that goes across the board for all of us, right? And the Native population nationwide, according to the US Census Bureau, our US population across the board for everybody is 329.5 million. Native Americans are only 6.79 million, and this is based on a census recently done in 2021. So that brings them to being only 2%, and that's just such a small margin. And there are 574 federally recognized Native tribes nationwide. See, I didn't even know that. So we only hear about, especially coming from California, we only are familiar with the ones with casinos and thinking that they're taken care of, thinking that, they're getting all their needs met, but it really isn't true after getting to know them and staying among them for the past summer. And today, what I really want to focus on is why are so many Native women and girls the victim of human trafficking? When I personally asked this question to a gentleman, he says, well, when you think about it, a lot of our women are very exotic looking. They can look Asian, they can look Hispanic, they can look like anything. And I never really thought about it that way. So I was thinking, really? You think? I'm like, well, I can see that. But then I never knew that that would be the reason why they would be associated with the reason why they'd be trafficked at a such higher rate. So this quote from Valora Imas Nason Hoya, she's an expert on human trafficking in the Indian country. She says, look we're associated with fetishes such as long hair, exotic looks, that sex patrons perceive as Asian or Hispanic. We can look like anything. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly what the guy told me when I was asking him about, why are your Native women so trafficked at such a higher rate? And due to their population, they're considered the minorities among minorities, and they're sold for a higher price than other ethnicities. There's a study that shows among the US and Canada, an average of 40% of women involved in sex trafficking are identified as American Indian, American Native, or First Nations. Yet Native women represent only 10% or less of the general population in the studied communities. That's a very high, alarming rate. I mean, when I first found out about that, because I knew being in the industry that Native Americans were trafficked at a high rate, but I didn't realize how high it was as far as among everybody else. That is extremely high. Congressional findings are that Native American and Alaska Native women are raped at 34.1%. So more than 1 in 3 will be raped in their lifetime. And just by looking at the group we have here, can you imagine? I was presenting this during the summer. I had 1 out of 3 people. I had to count them up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I had them all stand up. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe looking around the room to see how many of us are actually exploited, are actually going to be raped, are actually, in our lifetime. It's so high. Why is it that we're suffering in this way? And they're standing in awe and coming to see these numbers as I'm presenting it to them. You can see the tears in their eyes and how much it has impacted them. And they're just blown away by the numbers. 64% or more than 6 in 10 will be physically assaulted. Again, that's staggering high numbers, everyone. Native women are stalked more than twice the rate of other women. I don't know about you, but I've been stalked before. I've gone far as getting a restraining order on this person. To know that they are stalked at a higher rate is insane. Native women are also murdered at a rate more than 10 times the national average. Just to sit in this and process this for a moment. That's just so disturbing at so many levels. And look at this, non-Indians commit 88% of the violent crimes against the Native women. And if that doesn't break your heart, I mean, I don't know what will. Here's a photo of a powwow. She's not a victim, but it just shows a powwow where a lot of them come together and they do rituals and they do celebrations and everything else. And I just thought this was a beautiful photo to go ahead and share. And here's a story of a girl who was only 13, and they interviewed her because she was eventually rescued. But she literally said, "Nobody saw me." And why are so many of us being trafficked? Not just women, but also girls. She was trafficked by her boyfriend. Some guy just pretended he knew her from school and she was down. Her mom was an alcoholic and he loved on her, he lied to her, and then got her to go ahead. She's only 13 at the time, but she knew how to drive a car because her mom was so drunk at times that her mom had to teach her how to drive the Honda Accord that she had to make it home at times. So this poor young girl just drove off to this guy thinking he's her boyfriend who loved her. And after a while, just like the stories we hear, she was then exploited, gang raped by his relatives and his friends, and she wasn't able to escape. And finally one day they found her, and police, law enforcement, they got her and they gave her back to the mother without questioning. What concerns me is without even questioning, why was she in the condition she was in, left alone in a desolate place when she looked obviously malnourished at so many levels? And how come no one was able to screen this poor child to ask her what happened? But what did happen to her was they just gave her back to her alcoholic mother without question. Okay, you're the mom, come pick up your child. So for centuries, sexual violence has been a cornerstone of the treatment of Native American populations. It's integral to colonizations and displacements. If you don't know about what happened to them with the Trail of Tears, I highly recommend you look into it, read about it, and get to know what they went through. The Long Trail, get to know what they went through. The Sandy Creek Massacre, find out what happened to these poor natives that did nothing but were massacred. Their blood was just shed for nothing, just because someone didn't want them in that land and they wanted to take that land from them. So they've been going through so much. The trauma, the historical trauma that they've gone through pretty much has continued on with their children and their children's, and so they feel the pain, but yet they're questioning why isn't that they can no longer have a voice. Why is it that they're still silent? I mean, there's so many things that they're going through right now, unfortunately, that they've gone through many, many years ago that they're still facing today. And it is 2021. And that is very sad. That goes to show how much work we still have to do. Sex trafficking of contemporary Indigenous women is almost indistinguishable about from colonial tactics to enslavement, exploitation, exportation, and relocation. I mean, it's what they're used to because that's what's been happening to them from one generation to another generation. I mean, just like the Trail of Tears, they walked 200 to 450 miles. A lot of them didn't make it, and they were given nothing to even survive on. And here I'm going to discuss basically the lack of resources. Basically, for example, the survey in 2016 identified a large gap in access to services. Over 2/3 of 650 tribal lands reviewed experienced a significant access to sexual assault examiners and sexual assault response teams, while 381 reported no service coverage within hours of driving. And going back to my example of spending time with the people in Gallup, New Mexico, with the Navajo Nation, I personally know, and you're going to hear from her, Kim, where she recently had no place to stay and sought shelter, and she was not able to get into a shelter. So she had to go ahead and go 2 hours away to Albuquerque for her and her 2 kids just to seek shelter. So we want to change that. We want to go ahead, and that's why I'm directing this project called Safe Haven, New Mexico, because we want to provide them with resources. We want to go ahead and bring on a task force, put that together, and find out what we can do and build a safe haven, build a resource. Because of the lack of resources they currently have, they are left vulnerable. They're like sitting ducks for perpetrators to come out and just traffic them. Even word on the street, while I was there, they're like, Melina, on the street, we know to stay away from white vans. The white vans that have no windows, because they literally get abducted. I go, where's law enforcement? Why is this happening? And they said, well, when we call them, they take hours to respond. And sometimes they, maybe even respond a day or 2 later. It breaks my heart. And I know that there's, they need more law enforcement. They need a lot of help. But then, with what they have in place right now, currently is not working. And so I'm just here bringing information to everybody here that this is happening within our own borders and that we really need to do something about it. And for those of you that don't know, you're probably questioning, why doesn't tribal law enforcement do something? Well, here's what. They are trying to do something. But back in 1978, 43 years ago, the Supreme Court case of Olymphat versus Suquamish Indian tribe stripped tribes of the right to arrest and prosecute non-Indians who commit crimes on Indian land. They can only be arrested by a U.S. county or state officer, who in reality is not going to be around. So here's a photo of Native women rallying up to the Supreme Court back in December 7, 2015, as the justice heard argument on a tribal jurisdiction that was similar to the Olymphat versus Suquamish. And they have been working so hard to try to, undo this, and it's been unsuccessful, unfortunately. Here's an attorney. She's a citizen of Cherokee Nation, and her name is Mary Catherine Nagel, and she's a playwright and attorney who has been working. She's been one of the few attorneys that's been working to undo Olymphat versus Suquamish. And during her pretty much research, she's found that in the Cherokee Nation, that if there's a third offense, if anybody such as a crime against women, if there's a third offense, they can be punished by death, according to the research she's found within the Cherokee Nation. So for them, it's important, that regardless of race or nationhood, that people do, or people are accounted for what they do. So I know she's working really hard to undo this, and we pretty much want to stand with her. So violence against women. Let me see. Act for 2021. So the latest version, if you guys haven't heard about this, the latest version of the act also aims to improve accountability, noting that the Department of Justice found that Indigenous women on some reservations are slain at more than 10 times the national average. They want to reauthorize, reaffirm tribal nations' authority to prosecute non-Indigenous offenders who commit crimes on tribal territory. So that's a step forward in the past 40-something years. So we're really excited about this. I know that it did pass the House, and I know that President Biden is encouraging and urges the Senate to follow their lead to renew and strengthen this landmark law. So there's positive news there. So Project Safe Haven, this is the project that we've launched back in Gallup, New Mexico. That was our volunteers, and behind us you see, and beside me, Navajo family members out there. They're very loving, so kind, and all they want to do is help. And I'm going to share a few things while I was out there that I got permission to share with the people that came up to our tent. We were asking them if they knew about sex trafficking and if they needed information or if they needed any help. This person said, "Me, I need help. I was kidnapped. I was raped. And I had just given birth to my 2 twins. And I went to law enforcement. I went to the police, but they didn't believe me. I was getting raped and just left for dead. So I didn't know what else to do but then to go to law enforcement, and they just didn't care to take my story or even write a report." I was almost a victim of sex trafficking. Some guy was telling me to get in his car. I'm glad I didn't, because I was so scared and I ran off. And some of my friends were actually victims of human trafficking, but thankfully they were found. Please pray for me. I've been missing my sister for 4 years. She's now 32, somewhere near Albuquerque. We just don't know what happened to her. So we kept getting people coming to our tents, sharing their stories. And I'm telling you, it was like 9 out of 10 people were affected by either somebody missing or sex trafficking. And I've never, in my experience in human trafficking prevention or anything, has ever sat down and see so many people come up and tell me that they were affected by it within their family and friends. It's such a close circle. I saw a mural. I said, "Why Gallup, New Mexico? 675 missing persons in Gallup. 53% of them were women and Native Americans, comprised 76% of all missing persons. Gallup Police Department data indicates that from 2014 to 2019, 87% of all homicide cases were Native Americans. Again, that's way too high. That is disturbing at so many levels. So what we want to do is, with Project Safe Haven, is establish a human trafficking task force in New Mexico, in Gallup, New Mexico. So we're seeking partners like yourself and collaboration with providing services. We want to implement human trafficking prevention programs for the community. We want to build a resource center and advocacy and life skills training for many of the community members there that don't have access to a lot of things, and a safe house for women who are in need of rescue and support. So if that touches your heart, and if you want to be a part of that, I'd love to hear from you. Definitely email me, put that you're interested, and I'll share my email at the end. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our beautiful human trafficking survivor, Kimberly Wahpepah. She was sexually assaulted when she was a child and has become a spokeswoman for human trafficking, sexual exploitation, and missing and murdered Native women. She was born and raised in Gallup. And one of the quotes that she's come up with is, Melina, my existence is my resistance. So I'd like to please welcome Kim Kimberly, are you there? Onto the platform for her to share her story and why we need to band together in supporting the Native Indigenous people.
Kimberly in our call. I'm just wondering if she's having a moment to take herself off mute if she's on her phone.
Okay. All right. Kimberly?
Yes.
Are you there? Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we'd love to see her. Can you guys see her?
Hang on. Okay. Now, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Kimberly Wahpepah. I'm from Gallup, New Mexico. My clan is Tachini, Ishlana, Karina, Basashi, Ashi, Kiani. I grew up in Gallup and was raised part of my life on the reservation. I was molested by a relative. My mom was always working. My dad was always working also. And I'm the only daughter in the family. I have 2 younger brothers, so I'm the oldest. And we lived in a hogan, no running water, no electricity when I was growing up. Raised with herding sheep, which is my grandma. Live in the city, but my parents were always working. And my parents were always, they're workaholics. They weren't really there. But the time I got molested, it was really hard because I didn't know what to do. And times went on. It was very hard for me because the system and historically, it makes it seems like you're ashamed of being Native American. Down low life, a lot of my family members would put me down growing up saying, well, you're not going to be anybody. No one cares about you. It was so rough growing up, and I was just a negativity. The traditional ways, and through my mom's side being Christian, which was very hard itself. And my first husband is the first person that thought it was my escape, which I'm sorry, this whole thing just makes me cry right now because of everything that I'm describing right now, going through it. And emotionally, it's been really hard because crying out for help is the basic thing. And in my lifetime, throughout the years, it's like my voice was never valued or heard until now. So just give me time to process right now. And my first husband I met in school at the time, and he was the drug dealing. I didn't know that. And I was going to school at it's called Newcomb High School. It's between Shiprock and Tohatchi, and it's like I don't know if it's a BIA school. And I had to transfer there from Gallup, so I met him there, and I didn't realize he was gonna be the one that trafficked with him and his father. I didn't know what to do at the time. I knew that something wasn't right, but I just kept going through it because I had nowhere to go, and I had to just toughen up and just deal with it. So I got pregnant, and abuse went on through my first pregnancy, and he would hit me against the cement floor, which the hogan is made out of cement floors. So a lot of trauma stuff happened, abuse, and I met my mother-in-law a couple of weeks after, and she took me to a truck stop, and that's when the traffic started. They started to take me with them to show me. She would tell me, well, let's go. I'm going to show you how this is done. And I would feel really uncomfortable. And they would do this
on a daily basis till I got used to it, and till I was basically numb at the time. And I didn't know how to say no. It was hard because of this whole thing. And I didn't know who to run to. So I was basically blocked by myself. And they were all doing drugs. They're all heroin addicts. So basically what I would do for them, they would take everything from me. My money, it would get close to $50 or to 100 or something like that a day. And I wouldn't see any of that to myself. So going back to where they lived at in the trailer, like I said, they were heroin addicts, and at the time he was drug dealing cocaine, heroin, and of course marijuana at the time. And he would chase me outside to get the deals for him for less or things like that. He started changing my appearances to provocatively, like street, like skirts and just things you would, what it was. So there's times where I would help them. They'll put me in a difficult situation where when they were shooting up, I would hold the whatever syringe thing that put the needle they would put in, I would hold it while they're getting their hit on heroin.
Kimberly, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Guy who literally, at the time he was, and they told me to not talk about. What about now?
Okay.
Okay. At the time, and then
Yeah, we're losing you now.
Well, he was shooting up, and I literally. Okay, what about? I can't hear.
If she takes her camera off, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. If you take her camera off, maybe it'll be helpful, and I'll just share a photo of you.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can. Okay. Just as long as you hear me. Okay. And I went on to be a single parent at the time. He left me and left out of state to Indianapolis, where he lives now. And he left me with our 6-month-old daughter, who her name is, she's the oldest of the family. And after that, I just gave up on everything because he left me with everything, the bills, and I didn't know what to do anymore. And I went to a church, and that's when 4th of July, I got raped again. And it was very hard. And then I started drinking because the church kind of blamed me for things, saying it was your fault. You put yourself in that situation. And I cried because spiritually let me down. And that's when the next day I started drinking. And that's when I started drinking, getting high. I didn't care. I was literally drinking and partying and doing cocaine with the gang members, the Bloods and the Crips, and that's when I was gang raped again. I would wake up with strangers, and they would literally, I didn't know what I was doing. And throughout my life, the next relationship, I was strangled. Also, abuse was going on. So this is periodically most of my life. I am 38 right now, and continue to seek resources in my area, which is Gallup, and there's really no resources. been in and out of domestic violence shelters and tried to also go to that, but unfortunately they're not letting certain people in there, which is not right. And I don't know where to turn. I really don't know where to turn. Now my family is still, well, homeless, working on housing. We had to hitchhike from Gallup to here. And right now, advocating for those that are in the situation and talking to those that are also in trafficking and in the same similar situation as I have. And I'm speaking to you all to know that my voice now, it's important. The fact that you heard of the case of Gabby disappearance and missing and murdered, but when it comes to someone that's Native American, we don't get any social media outlet for cases to be solved for forensic or anything like that. That's how important this is the fact that we need more help. We need more of this. We need more attorneys, and not the federal level with the families that I've been advocating for. They don't get answers right away. So far, there's cases that have been in the 1960s and still nothing. The families are not getting answers. So I need help. I really need help. Our people need your help, because having someone go through the same thing and not getting help, it's like no one hears you, no one sees you, they don't care, and society never cared about you. And that's why I said my existence is my resistance. But I stand here advocating survivor of sex and human trafficking in Gallup, Mexico. And I feel that I could rise up and educate and help other people, help others understand, and be a light, and also to those that are out there to help and to be by their side as well also. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. What I'd like for you to share is, I'm going to put the next screen up in regards to what you were able to accomplish with the City Council of Gallup. Can you go ahead and please share that with everybody? It's a huge accomplishment.
I'm sorry, I'm crying right now because what Holly is holding is the proclamation that I did for Gallup. See, I've been doing this for a very long time, and a lot of community members in my area had attorneys, had people helping them, had leaders, but I didn't have nobody. Okay, I reached out to a county commissioner at the time, two ladies on a commissioner, and one of them said, you know what, let's do a proclamation, let's help you do this and get this going. So I said, okay. So my faith, I've been through a lot, so I prayed about everything, and sure enough, I did my research on, and so I came with the proclamation in Gallup, New Mexico, and that's what she's holding on the picture. And the city commissioners reinstated this and get Gallup also. So I'm still working with commissioners right now in the city of Gallup who know what I've been doing, and I stay in contact with them on a daily basis sometimes. And they are amazing people I've worked with. They encourage me to help make this happen. So I'm with the mayor at the time and the county commissioners at the time. I really thank them for going out of their way to making this happen, because it's not just for me, it's for those who don't have a voice.
Well, you've been doing so much, and we are so proud of you. And I know it was really difficult for you to share your journey, and we really appreciate you for sharing it. We definitely have to get you back, because the fact that I've been able and had the privilege to hear your entire journey, I feel it's important for everybody to hear. As I was stating, the statistics as regards to how Native women are being trafficked at a higher rate, how they're assaulted, how they're raped, and just all of those stats. you lived through it, and we're so sorry that you did. You know, what Kim didn't get to share is through her journey of being trafficked, she was sent to Spokane, Washington, for a shelter. And then after she left the shelter, she just, wanted to get a haircut and look for a place to stay. And who knew that the salon owner, the person who cut her hair, befriended her and essentially trafficked her. Basically said, wow, you're Native, I'm gonna get more money for you, so we're gonna do this. And she groomed her. So here's poor Kim, who has left New Mexico to get away from being trafficked, to be put in a shelter over there that specifically helps survivors. And with things that happened there, she essentially left, and then again was vulnerable and was trafficked just from getting her hair cut. And the person sought her out, scouted her, groomed her, and threw her back to the lions. And after that, when she escaped, she was looking for a place to stay. The landlord, who knew, right? A landlord went ahead, turned around, and trafficked her. And this person who trafficked her again, he specifically trafficked her for pilots, for a group of pilots. So this is happening here within our own borders, everywhere. And we don't get to hear about this in the media. But here she is, you get to see her. She's risen from so much, and to share her story. And so I'd love to have her back. I'd love to have you back so you can actually share that journey, because I think it's so important for everybody to hear. I'm going to share a next, let me see. Here's her wearing our Human Trafficking I Am Not For Sale t-shirt from our Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force. And again, I'm going to go back to, if you're interested in Project Safe Haven, become an advocate, partner with us. Your donation will make this project possible. Invite us to speak to our organization or business, become a corporate sponsor. If you're interested in providing services to our survivors, please reach out to us. And, would you like to even join Gallup, New Mexico's task force? We're in the middle of trying to put that together. Email us at info@the Foundation. And as of right now, we've been utilizing our own personal resources, including myself and everybody in our team, just to make this happen, to even launch it and to get it where it's at. But I know that we can do so much more collectively as a community, as we rise up together and support. There's so many Kimberlys out there that are waiting, that don't have anybody, and that are hopeless, but we can band together and make a change and make a difference. Here am I from Long Beach, California, just happened to go visit, and I just could not leave not knowing, and just knowing that that's going on and not be able to do anything about it. So, it's just me responding, and I'm not a big person with big, deep pockets or anything, but it just takes one person to spark something and to go ahead and bring this awareness to everybody here, and everybody here can actually share that with everybody else. So that's the purpose of us sharing this. So we want to thank you, and Kimberly and I are open to questions. If you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chat right now. Let's see.
Oh my God.
Kimberly, I'm going to read to you as far as like messages for you in the chat. You are so courageous. We are here to support you and are so proud of you. That's from Teresa. She's with the city of Long Beach. I am so sorry that you have been abused and in so much pain. And sorry your church and family and law enforcement blamed and shamed you. We don't judge you or blame you. We love you. God always loves you no matter what. That's from Jean Soto. Thank you. Kathy Perino. Kimberly, I am so sorry that the church treated you that way. We have heard similar stories. pure ignorance and judgment. Things are changing, so thank you for sharing that. Mac, Wayne, powerful story, and in today's climate so poignant, we as citizens and communities must do more. Absolutely, thank you so much. Native American women and children's lives matter. Yes, they do. Let me see. Oops. Am I missing anything else? Let me see. Mary White, so proud of you to be using your voice to speak truth about this issue. I will be praying for healing and help with resources. Thank you for sharing your story and for your strength. God bless you. So lots of praises and, let go of all those lies, Kimberly, that everybody has told you thus far. You have a group of people who are loving on you, who are supporting you, who are very sorry that you've gone through that, and who are just rooting for you. Kimberly, thanks for your courage and strength in sharing your story.
Thank you so much for giving me this platform. And thank you, Mayneth. I appreciate our friendship, and to the foundation as well. I thank everybody for listening. Just keep my family in prayer. We're still trying to get housing right now. We got a hotel voucher right now. So we are hopefully in the process. I don't know how this works, but we are here in 90-day stay right now. So just keep me in prayers, and whatever help, anything would be great. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
If anybody is touched by Kimberly's story and wants to help her, please contact our foundation directly. We will go ahead and make sure that she gets the help that she needs. And let me just check the chat. I think someone...
Hi, this is Kendra with Crittenton. I really just want to thank you both, because unfortunately, this is a topic that is not discussed, and it just literally breaks my heart that our Indigenous people, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, are still treated like they don't matter when they've given us so much. And it's just so interesting. I'm actually doing a presentation today on race and trafficking. And do you know how hard it is to find data or information on the Native American population? And it just shouldn't be. It just shouldn't be. So I'm happy that you've brought this to people's attention, and I hope people rise up and start to do something. I know Vanguard is in the process of doing something as well. And we just have to do better. We have to do better by the people who help build our country, who we owe so much. They just shouldn't be treated like this. And it's just an outrage. And I hope you take your presentation throughout so people can hear what you have to say, because it's important and it needs to be brought to people's attention. It's just outrageous to me. Why does this woman not have housing? Why doesn't she have the support and assistance that she needs? It makes literally no sense to me. So I will make a call and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Kendra, for sharing. We really appreciate you.
I'm just outraged right now.
My ministry will be praying for you and your family, Kimberly. Completely agree with Kendra. Amen. Jean Soto.
Yes, thank you.
Simone, Sister Simone, thank you, God, for all the support. Well, this concludes this section, and I will, okay. Kathy, we will spread the awareness of this injustice at Saddleback Church. Thank you, Kathy.
Millennia.
Yes.
It's Patrice. I just want to say, brilliant job. And Kim, I'm praying for you. This was awesome. We're just here to support you and love you. And thank you for the task force for being so supportive, everyone on there, and those words of encouragement. So thank you. That's Patrice.
Thank you, Patrice. Patrice is our founder, everyone, the Project Foundation. I'm gonna put how you can reach us and where you can donate. There, and you can email me directly. Yeah, so Kimberly had to hitchhike from, as I shared with you, from Gallup, New Mexico, due to not being able to get into a shelter. So that's definitely one of the things we want to go ahead and tackle and make sure that there's shelter and resources for them. Well, thank you. This concludes our presentation. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to my presentation and to hear from our human trafficking survivor ambassador, Kim.
Thank you, Melania, and thank you, Kimberly, for your vulnerability and willingness to allow us to share space with you as you took us on your journey, a portion of your journey, a small insight into the journey and the realities of your life, as well as Melania giving the perspective of your journey through New Mexico, and allowing us to understand what life looks like for the Native folks. It's really important that we understand. I saw in the chat, Native lives matter, and I just think that sometimes this might not be in the forefront, and that doesn't give it any assistance if we're not aware of it. And when we know better, we can do better. And as a task force, to recognize, is this something that we can address here in the Long Beach area? Or do we have Native peoples in the Long Beach area that we need to particularly reach out to? That would be my call to action for our core team, to start to recognize this population as well. So, Melania, again, thank you for bringing Kimberly to our space. And Kimberly, thank you for your vulnerability and your willingness to allow us to learn from your experiences.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm willing to travel as well, when the door opens, and speak more and encourage more also.
And by the way, Kimberly, as the person with the mic right now, and also as a therapist, we never apologize for tears. So I heard you say that in your presentation. We don't apologize for tears. We welcome them. If it's something that's authentic for you, then that's fine with us. So
yes.
All right. I also want to give space to the room now, and I'm just aware that this has been a journey that we've taken as a task force, as we've sat and supported Kimberly through her share, and Melania through her presentation. And I want to open the floor. Usually a year and a half ago, when we were in person, I would run around the room with a microphone and allow folks to speak, or maybe we might turn to one another in like breakout rooms to talk about our impact, our takeaways from this moment, how this resonates with you as a professional or as a personal takeaway, if you will. So I just want to give space to the floor and to the task force who's in the Zoom room. This is not a requirement to share, but some of you have already talked about your support, but how this resonates. And Kendra, you spoke about your presentation that's coming up soon and how this resonates for you. So I want to give that space to the rest of the floor so that we can allow others